Hello and welcome to the Dance of the Soul. And here Regan is got a wonderful light shining in on him. If you could see this, we're here today, and Regan is just coming in by the skinny. What is that saying? By the nitty of the chin, the hair of his chin here. You
Yeah,
know,
skin of my
doing
teeth,
this is
whatever they
skin of
call
your
that.
teeth, or whatever that old saying is of you know yeah, it's coming in at the very last minute. I wasn't actually expecting him here because he texted me saying that he had to help some stranded friends of his, and Tony, who's been on our show a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, um, that and I had, when I was down there, met, got a chance to hug them for real, type of thing. But they got stranded by a car, and then as Tony says, that he always has these things that come up, and he just rolls with it with a shininess. And it's just amazing to witness how some people roll with things and
Yeah,
others just kind of get into the thunk of it. And we should have talked
yeah,
about that today, because the energies of today were just kind of like, oh my gosh, I know that the moon went into Gemini, which is an air planet, which is, the mind's always working and things are going on, and things are happening, and we assume this and got to talk about that. And it's one of those things. So the guy actually, Tony's phone got taken from a Uber driver, he
a lift.
says. A lift.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Okay.
You want to trash the wrong thing.
Oh, a lift. And so with that, now he's trying to get the cops and stuff like that, but did the lift guy just kind of just take off without even thinking about it,
No,
or?
Tony and them, they had to jump out of the car because the guy was trying to charge him 3 times as much. Like they were going one way, he was charging them 3 ways, and then he refused to give them their money back, and they got in an argument. Tony didn't. Kim just got out of the car, and he left his phone in there. But the guy had an advertisement on top of his car, which you're not supposed to have if you're doing Lyft, for a
Uh-huh.
certain restaurant. So Tony chased him down, found out where he lives from that ad. So
Oh,
anyway, the guy was supposed to meet him at a Motel 6 to give him his phone back, and then he shut his phone off altogether. So Tony just called the sheriff on him because he knows where he lives. So
oh yeah, or works at least, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh,
drama.
the drama. And that's the thing, is that you kind of wonder why. And today's conversation is actually going to be about souls. Where do souls go? Why do some stay? Why are we always, there's these personalities, and the afterlife and that kind of stuff, because I've been really hearing a lot of people who have been having a lot of people pass away. Well, you kind of wonder now why some souls stay. It's one of those things that when we leave, because our personality is so grained into our being sometimes, that we just stay in the knowing that we have. And so it's one of those things that as we go. So I'm going to send prayers and love to Tony, and I know that he just has this way of rolling through things,
He'll
doing
work
what
it
he
out.
needs. It always works out. I know I had life with a lot of chili powder in it. Good luck, blessings. I have blessings everywhere. Just a lot of little bit of spice to it. My life is spicy in some ways with how I negotiate it. But Tony has, like, he's into the jalapeno pepper, or he's into the hot peppers
Yeah.
for spice. So
Well, and that's something, even just starting out the show with this kind of thing going on, it's really showing me I've known him for 20 something years, and he's been in impossible situations dozens and dozens of times. I mean, things where you think, I mean, as far as, being kidnapped by the cartel in Mexico 2 times,
yeah.
uh, and things like that. And he always can find a way to get out of it. He can always find a solution. Um, even when I've seen him when he's going through situations where I would be totally down, he just, when I see him, he's just, hey, hi there, I mean, he
Yeah.
keeps that, and I think that's what helps him get out of these situations, because he keeps such a positive attitude that everything's going to work out. He
Hmm.
looks for the good and what gets him into those situations is he's looking for the good in everybody, even these guys that are like criminals. He's looking for the good in them, and then he ends up getting you know,
Kind of smash. So,
some
so if
kind of
people don't
problems.
know, yeah, if somebody doesn't know, Tony is a really good friend of Regan's, and he
Yeah.
has been an amazing teacher in a way of how to negotiate life, and that kind of stuff. So if we're talking about, and Tony was on our show, and gave him some guidance about, the one thing I do remember about it is that it was about being the elder. Instead of being the little kid going through these things, he's got to be the elder going through these things.
Yeah.
And Regan's in his van because he just picked up, Tony and his wife, it's been woo. And then
Sorry.
no, you're good. He's in his van, and literally they just jumped out so that they can deal with their business, and Regan can do this. So if Regan has to pop off, it's because
Yeah.
he's in the
Did,
middle of this literally and that literally. So
did my screen just get dark on you?
it just now did.
Because I thought I'm here where the sun's shining on my phone, and I'm wondering if it's
Getting too hot.
now. And now I don't. It just got kind of dark, and let's see here. Now I'm just going to switch over here as we're talking to this side where there's.
And this is called life. And and that's one thing that if anybody who watches our show, that Regan and I just kind of rumble through life ourselves. We don't get attached to things. So today, though, I wanted to kind of, we're kind of coming into this conversation a little bit awkward, and I wanted to kind
There
of
we
just
go.
let people, there we go, want people to know that we do have high intentions of doing what we talk about on the show, but sometimes as life happens, it takes over. And so we just kind of walked in on this because, like I said, Regan just came on just a few minutes before we did this. So it's one of those things. So we might have some new people here. So Man on the Moon, hello, how are you? Thank you for your hearts. Yes, we're working on it. So I was on a show just this other Saturday, and it was a show that he talks about a lot about the star beings and life and that kind of stuff, and it was interesting, and I'm grateful that I have a whole bunch of new followers from that, and I'm so grateful that if they want to be here, and I'm grateful that they're anybody who subscribes, I'm grateful whoever can watch, because Regan and I on Mondays with the Dance of Soul, and me on Life Clarifications with Natasha on Wednesdays at 4, that we so much are here to support and give life purpose and that kind of stuff. So I'm a psychic medium, Natasha Venter. Regan is a hypnotherapist, and he does many other facets. I mean, he's an amazing man who's lived many walks of life, and we both have perspectives and belief systems that we can work with pretty much anything and everything, and we honor anything and everything because we all know that life happens, and why should we judge it? So that's one of the things that when Regan and I do private sessions with people, we really honor where people are at and negotiating what they're doing. So welcome, Regan. Welcome to a
Yeah.
Monday that, oh my gosh, when the people I've been around and I witnessed them, wow, what a Monday it was. And it wasn't necessarily anything wrong or right. It was just like, we just kind of came into it. Sunday was calm. Monday was, hello, week. Here we are. And
Yeah.
so welcome,
Well,
welcome.
today's a good example. I mean, what we're here to do to talk about the show is how to deal with the difficulties that come up in life. And my two friends right now, they're just having one of those days, stone or, their car or their phone stolen, somebody trying to overcharge them on Lyft, and the arguments, and their car trying to be repaired, which is really crazy. And so we go through that. I'm just on the periphery of that, trying to help them. Like a lot of times we get calls from our friends or something, and they need our help, and we're down here to help each other. And that's one way we give service, right?
Exactly.
By being there for people, because sometimes when we're needing help and we call out to others, we're so grateful when we have someone we're close enough to that'll help us out of a difficult situation, pick us up when our car's stranded, or, they somehow, Tony and I have both been in the situations before where financially over the last 20 years, we were stuck, and we would lean on each other a little bit. Hey, you got $20? And he'd send it to me somewhere that would get me to my next, where I need to go, or me get him to where he needed to go. And it all kind of works out because it's like family, you just try to do what you can down here, you know.
Exactly, exactly. So with Regan, I wanted to remind you that today we're talking about the soul and the walk of the soul and how we're going to go why do some soul where do we go after our last life and where do they come? But we kind of got disjointed with the energies of today.
Yeah.
So and what was going on. So that it's just amazing how, I want people to know that we, here we are, and that kind of stuff. So, this is the work of the soul, though. The work of the soul is to really negotiate and learn what is going on and how do we manage these emotions and that kind of thing. And a lot of times when souls leave, they carry the emotions of anger and judgment and frustration and that kind of stuff, and that's why they don't necessarily leave the plane. They're, if they were a murderer, or if they like the control, then they do stick around a little bit more than some of the others. So it's one of those things of getting where we're at. And so hello Champagne, how are you? So she says, what happens to the soul if they get their life taken based on getting murdered at a young age? Okay, so I want you to know that um in my observation, now my dad has crossed over. Now, let's see, Scott is almost 30. So 30 years ago, because I was pregnant with my first child when my father passed away. And from what me talking to him, me remembering many lifetimes, me negotiating many lifetimes, and Regan, you'll have your opinion on this too. That from my understanding, no one goes home alone. No one goes home alone. There's always someone who is with them. Angels, guides, family members. No one goes home alone. Now, there's some souls that once they come and be taken care of, let's say somebody who was like the ruler of a town and they like that power, and their family member comes and says, you've passed over, come with us. And they go, hell no, I'm not going, and they can have that choice because we all have kind of that scenario. And so, and I've witnessed this going on, from past lives and doing the work that I've done as my light. So with that going forward and engaging in this soul walk, that no one goes home alone. And if someone is murdered, I know that there are certain groups of angels, loved ones, like my dad. My dad is one that he's done work on the other side. He's a worker. He's a being who helps. And so there's a team that helps certain scenarios come through. So like if somebody does who commits suicide, then there's a group that comes and helps that being cross over. If they're murdered, then a lot of times through those last moments, the soul is gone, because of the fact that the angels or guides, someone takes that soul and says, you don't want to witness this last bit of what your body has to go through. And so that there is that. So they are always taken. They're always taken care of. They're always with love. Regan, what is your perception on that? And
Well,
I kind of jumped in on this conversation and knowing
yeah.
that you were all over the place. So I wanted to give you some grounding here.
Yeah, well, in the research through the Newton Institute, where we've had 70,000 people go to the other side, ask questions, and come back, and that's how we know a lot now about what happens when you die, where you go, what you do while you're there before you decide if you want to come back again. And the more we're finding is that there's almost an infinite amount of scenarios. Typically most souls, like when they leave their body, they get murdered or they just die normally, whatever happens, they leave their body. There's a guide or an angel, somebody benevolent there that's willing to kind of take them by the hand and take them back home again. But it seems like on the fringe, I think you know more about this than me because of your connection, the direct connection you have in a sense to the other side. That, just like you say, some souls are confused right away. That like they like I've heard cases where somebody got in a car accident and immediately died, and even though they're in that in between state between here and the other side, they don't realize that they've actually died. Then to them they're still alive, or they have such a connection to the side that they want to hang around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that's what happens in some cases, but I think that's the very minority, that happens. But there's because of the millions and millions of souls that die all the time, that certain percentage, I guess some people would say that's why they see these apparitions or ghosts, or some souls just take longer, would you say, to transition? That's what it would be more like. It's just like some souls immediately transition, which seems to be generally what happens. But then some of them just don't, for a while. Well, like some souls, when they die, they don't want to go immediately to heaven because they want to stay around and comfort people
Mm-hmm.
that are grieving over them, and they try to appear to them in their dreams, or some way, contact them to let them know they're okay. That would be one way of where some souls stay around. But like you were saying, some souls, it's too much of a jolt, or they don't
Mm-hmm.
quite understand that they're transitioning, and so they hang around for a while.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so Champagne says that it makes much sense. I lost my brother about a year ago, and I feel like his soul left his body before he got shot. Yes, and oh, my love is with you, my dear. Traumatic deaths are, I don't want to say any death is easy to work with, but traumatic ones, it's our own personal car wreck. It's our own personal, the rug taken out from under us, and it's grief in that way is so amazing. And yes, I would say that Veronica, hi Veronica. Veronica says that's comforting. Um, and then there's another comment here. Can a soul be vast? So vast that it does not fit into the, yes, and I will talk about that too, because I
That's an
have
interesting question.
yeah, because I do have a comment about that, because I have an understanding of that. And then, so would the souls staying here be what they call earthbound spirits? Is that the same? Yes, there is earthbound spirits. There is, okay, so knowing that souls, a lot of times that, okay, this is a big conversation that it may not be just in an hour here. Okay, so to give you an idea that that earthbound souls aren't necessarily all the soul that's here. So we have soul that is left, because a soul is energy. So you know how you hear about how archangels or angels can be anywhere and everywhere at the same time, because they are energy. And the same with our soul. I know for me that if I'm sleeping and there's a car wrecking over in England and I go and help that soul, then I'm over in England too, as well as I'm here with my body. So there's a difference there. So to answer the question quickly about can the soul fit in the body? No, my body is the skeleton of my soul, of my being, I'm going to call it. And so with that it's not, I couldn't shove it in here. It would be like trying to shove a big bag of cookie dough into a plastic bag that doesn't fit. You can't. It doesn't work. And so with that we are the being, our being is totally around us. And I almost feel like, in a way, for kind of a cliche language, that people say that you're in my aura. The aura is actually our soul. So with it's that kind of that whole energy field of who we are. And then when you're talking about earthbound spirits, that the earthbound spirits, and Regan, you'll have your, I know you have your insight about this too, that earthbound spirits aren't necessarily like my dad. Okay, I'm going to give you example. I've lost both my parents within 3 years of each other while I was having my kids, and so my dad, he knew I was pregnant with my little one, and so he ended up staying around and being, but my dad I always said my dad walked one foot in this world and one foot in the spirit world. So he was very intuitive himself. He knew how to negotiate the soul walk. And there's more souls that are awake than others. So my dad was around for quite a while, but I know for a fact that he crossed over and came back. And souls can do that. They don't necessarily have to stay here. They can cross over and come back. Like my dad, he was very awake soul. Like me, I'm on a very awakened soul. And so with that crossing over is no big deal for us. We just go over, check in. Hi, how I'm here. I need to go back and check on family members. Where my mother, she was more of a human soul in this lifetime. She was meant to learn a lot of the humanness in her life. And so it took me almost a year before my dad pulled her into my dream and said that she's fine, because I didn't really feel my mom around me right away. She had a lot of work to do. Her passing was not easy. She had Lou Gehrig's disease. So she passed very roughly, and so she actually was taken and taken for a while to integrate into the other side. So it depends on the soul. Now earthbound spirits, now thinking about, let's say, the war fields on like the Civil War, those are energy. That's a time loop. But there are some earthbound spirits that want to take control. They want to negotiate their story. So Regan, what are you thinking that going after that conversation?
Well, just going back before I lose the thought of someone who asked about, do sometimes people leave their body before they actually physically die? And we've had a number of cases, or when I have people, I'm doing past life regressions with them and they're at their death scene. And if it's something that's traumatic, and then when I'm checking in with them to see how they're doing, they say, oh, I've already left my body, but my physical body is still going through that torture or that something. It has
Hmm.
seemed, and I remember from Oprah Winfrey one time had a man on there, and he was talking about, maybe it was when Dr. Weiss, she was talking to him, who does past life regressions, and it was a pilot that was getting ready to crash into the ocean, and in that scenario, that person experiencing that past life says, I left the body prior to crashing into the ocean. So I think sometimes, even though the physical bodies are being, dying in a horrific way, our souls are able to, they know that, and they leave so
Hmm.
that there's not so much trauma. Also had a good friend who was captured in the Korean War. He was captured in the Korean War and put in a prison camp, and he was with another gentleman, and they both were really, really knew how to meditate. They both and they were both Buddhists, I believe. They were tortured. They were put into it's like a big drum in the out in the sun, where they'd be like
Hmm.
being in metal, like you're being cooked inside. It was the barrels he expended was just suspended by ropes, and when they had trouble with prisoners, they would throw them in there to torture them. And
Or did not have
because he
trouble with them.
knew,
They just want to torture them.
yeah, because he knew how to, in a sense, leave his body or to change his consciousness, every time they would open him up to see how they were doing, they were smiling, and it freaked out the guards so much that after the third time, they took him out of there and they opened the gate to the thing and just said, "Get out of here," you know. And he said it was because he was able to, in a sense, to, well,
Yeah.
he didn't have to experience the torture because he was able to have his consciousness somewhere else.
Hmm.
So in the physical, it seems like we have that ability, but I think soul a number of times does leave the body. And when one other case of it was a woman who was she wasn't in a coma, but she was terminally ill, so in the hospital, and we found out that different times in the day she would leave and go to the other side and start making preparations to get over there, and then she would come back on her body, back and forth
Hmm.
until everything was set and ready to go, and then she transitioned. So that's how powerful the soul is. We're not, it has this ability to
Yeah.
leave and come and go in the body.
And I would say that I wouldn't say that it's all knowing, because it doesn't know all. That's why we're in this human form, is to
Yeah.
experience, to learn. But it is all understanding, knowing, seeing, being in the moment, to where it can kind of be one step ahead of us to be able to negotiate many
Yeah,
things.
I
That's
like that.
why,
One step ahead.
yeah, that's why I always kind of say that I trust that part of me that knows what to do. Because of the fact that my soul knows what to do. It has this, I'm intuitive. Natasha is intuitive. I am very psychic. Natasha is very psychic. Me, the body, the knowing, my brain allows this to happen. But my soul, my being, that Akashic records of me has no wings that are beyond my brain's capabilities. And so
Yeah.
with that I trust that part of me that knows what to do. And it's gotten me out of a lot of, I'm going to call it shit, because of the fact that it's that part of that dance that we do in life. And it's amazing how we can go forward and doing that. And so it's one of those things. I want to make sure that we catch up here.
But as
So
far as
go
soul
ahead.
bound, when you were talking about soul bound, uh, what's the phrase you're using? Soul bound or
Yeah,
earthbound
so
souls?
the question was is that so would the soul staying here on earth, what would you call them, soul balance series, be the same? So we were talking about that, are the souls the same? I'm going to say that there's some energies that are just, they're not souls, they're energy. They are just plain old energy. And so with that it is sometimes where there is a, like, there's sometimes where I see a soul in a house that I'm house blessing or house clearing, and it just repeats going the same direction. Well, that's almost like an energy stamp that things are just gonna be going, and that's not considered a soul, but that's an energy residue that is taken from that moment. um
Yeah,
uh
we actually have cases where when we're doing this Life Between Lives process through the Newton Institute, and we have them go to a previous life, and some of their lives that I know some of these souls were uh, observing, like they weren't actually in a physical earthly body, but they were kind of here, but in a different dimension in a sense,
mhm.
having experiences differently than being all the way in a physical body. So that was interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, dimensions are, I see my dimensions. I can actually tell you exactly what's happening in about 6 other dimensions that are a Natasha in a different dimension. I can tell you that right now. I can see them. But at the same time though, I'm concentrating in this one, being here in this knowing. And that's the thing is that souls sometimes have to bounce around, because I know that there's sometimes where I'm bouncing around to my different places, but there's a part of my soul that stays with this body. There's a part of the soul that walks away. There's a part of the, but I can really tell though when like there was a time when I was getting some energy work done, and this was before I really was getting into being who I am now today. This was about 10-15 years ago that I was getting some energy work done, and all of a sudden I saw white go phew, and I saw my soul go and resonate kind of above my body, because there was a part of me that went holy crap, you know and the soul kind of shot out of my body, just like one time I was in the plane and we had turbulence, and I was in a place where I was going through some past life experiences and some things like that, and the turbulence shot my soul out. Well, I had vertigo so bad that it took me 5 hours to get my soul back to my body, because my soul jumped out in the airplane over Spain. And I had to walk through old castles, the grounding, to get my soul. And I had to keep like pulling the tether down, because I can shoot out. I can be out in space. I can be in many dimensional planets away. So my tether to this body is quite long. So it took me a while to pull my soul back
Wow.
to
Well,
my body, not in my body, but to my body.
yeah. I mean, in the research of the Newton Institute research, we discovered a long years ago that that there's always part of our soul energy that's in the afterlife, and that's not all of our soul energy is in this body. So in this body, we're only aware of a portion of our whole self, you
Hmm.
know, and this consciousness. But this is what's great, is just realizing that we are each greater than this, what we see in this physical body, and when I have people doing a Life Between Life process, I witness that as they merge merge together with part of their higher self, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it's a beautiful thing to witness. And because I record all these sessions, when they're listening to the session, it makes my clients smile when they go, "Oh my God, that's me talking to me." That's
Yes.
a greater part of me that I'm not really aware of so much when we're in the body here. So um, it just, in all this work that you and I are doing, Natasha, we just keep finding that we are so much bigger. There's so much more, out there of ourselves, of the world, of the universe and everything. And we're talking about it in human form. So we're talking about little bits of this bigger piece, but
This
there's
bigger
just
piece.
more and more and more,
Yeah, I had someone who actually he's a star being and he's a medium and spirit, very psychic. And I had a reading from him for the first time because sometimes I just want somebody who's very nice, very raw to who I am. And he all of a sudden he looks up and he goes, "That's you! Just walked in the room. Oh my God, that was you," as he's looking up, 12, 15 feet. And I go, "Yeah, that's me." Because I know that there's in past lives I've been an angel, so I know that there is, I believe that souls are kind of like, for lack of a better word, it's the only way I can really describe it for the humanistics to understand it. It's kind of like we're a mixture. So like a dog is a mixture of like hound, like my dog is a black cure, so she's got hound, pit, lab, ridgeback. There's these different parts of her. Well, our soul is like that. So my soul is star being, angel, fairy, or fae. There's many. I can say I heard my dragon speak up. Yes, and dragon. And there's these different parts of my soul that are like this connection of who I am, and so with that's our journey during this lifetime is to collect. That's why I call it my humanness needs to know this. My humanness needs to know this, so that my soul can negotiate the learnings. I always walk through life as an observer as much as I can because it's amazing what I can observe with no judgment. I don't have any judgment. It's about basically observing because it is about what can I collect in this soul to know how to negotiate.
What's interesting now? There's this movie out now that's going for best nominated for best film this year, and it's
Hmm.
I get it's like everything. Wait a minute, everything, something, all at once, and it's about this woman that in her daily life she's switching between all these different dimensions of where she is and all these different scenarios,
Hmm.
and it's like she's discovering she's this multi-dimensional spiritual being. And it's interesting that it's up for best picture of the year. I think
We're
it's
getting there.
resonating.
Yeah,
We don't
it's
quite,
resonating.
it's in this consciousness, it's hard to comprehend, something. And
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
want to fight. The thing is, this consciousness that we have, this lower consciousness, wants to fight that it's all that there is, you
Yes.
know. And like
Yeah.
even the work we're doing, if someone just happens to see our podcast now, we're talking about this,
Yes.
they're just rolling their eyes, like, oh my gosh, talking about
Yeah.
ghosts
But then
or
we get people where it says these words resonate deeply into me. So thank
oh,
you. And somebody Champagne says so much good information. Thanks much for answering. You're very welcome. That's what we're here for is to um uh it is amazing how we're doing this work, and yet that's where I say that oh, we're having a human moment. Hello Ward, how are you? Thank you for coming and being here with us. That our humanness is very much needing and wanting to Paula, hello Paula, good evening to you too. That it is about how can we learn, how can we negotiate the story of where we're at. But our souls are so vast, like you're saying, that if we try to tether them into this body, like people say you should be more grounded. Well, I'm going to say, not really to me. Now, I'm going to say that I want to be more present, more in my knowing, more aware of what my body is going through. I want to be able to picture the insides of my digestive system. So I need to be aware and very grounded thinking in my being. But I can tell you, there's sometimes I ground to the top of a cedar tree,
Yeah.
or the redwoods or something like that, because it's the fact that I am not necessarily, I have too many wings. Hawk is one of my totems. I'm a fairy with wings. I'm an angel with wings. I'm not meant to ground. My soul is not meant to be grounded. Yet at the same time, though, Mother Earth has me on her planet, and I'm willing to walk through the humanness, which has a grounding effect for me.
Yeah, something's happening now. I think we can all feel there's become such a thirst or hunger for more of this knowledge about our bigger self,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's because we need to download more of that information, because the world is gotten more complicated, and we need more of that higher perspective so we can deal with what's at hand, with the way the earth is, the way we're going with I mean, the wars going on all over, the health of the planet, everything, and for us to be able to navigate through, to keep Earth a healthy place for our souls to come down here, there's some changes need to be made, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
have this bigger perspective. We need to really see that we are here to help each other, not to take from each other. Um, and
But that's that stretch and pull of what the souls do, because I know that, like my dad, I was just talking to him we were going to talk about meditation and the good of meditation one of these days. And I've come to a new way of meditating. Finally I can meditate. Um and my dad was talking the other day to me, and he's one of my guides now. And he was saying, about some things, but he's learning on the other side. The thing that's different about the souls being with this body is that we can move forward in time. And I don't want to say time is about going, forward, but there's about the energy that the learning is to grow and to shift and to change. And our soul learns more because of the emotions we have, because of the dance. And so, like, when you have somebody who is a soul, like I did a house clearing where there was a guy who was tethered to a house that I did, and he was one that owned that part of the city. He was very much in control, so he ended up wanting to stay in control, so he ended up being a gatherer of souls. In a way, he was very dark. He's a very dark being, and he got very well taken care of after this moment. But so with that when he with his souls, but he didn't learn much more after he left, because he wasn't tethered to a body to learn the emotion. So he kept circling back around in that control, in the knowings that he was, that this is my house, this is my knowing, this is what I control, this is what I do, this is the I. He was very much into that I circling around. And so when we cleared him, it was like the whole house could breathe again, because it wasn't that circling going around. So when you're talking about a negative soul, like a lot of times when people go into a haunted church or a haunted house, that there's these souls that stick, but they're not necessarily learning much more, because they're not in the process of the body and that kind of stuff. So that's why you get somebody who's in the 1800s kind of staying mentally in the 1800s, when you have a soul that is, like, hell no, I'm not going home. I like it here. I have a bunch of money. I know what I can control. I know I can control this situation, and I want to control it. So I'm not going anywhere. And so with that, there's that stories. But the souls that move forward, it's about that. How do we move forward? So a lot of times, after we leave this world, we're in a download process. Our souls finally get a chance to look at the higher reason we were here on this planet.
yeah.
So man on the moon, I love that saying. Thank you all for your answers. I always knew, even without necessarily being aware of that come from elsewhere? Oh, definitely. We do. Actually, I know where we have come from. And my truth is my truth. Yet at the same time, I like to bring a perspective to help stretch somebody else's truth a little bit. And I know Regan says the same, can say a lot the same thing.
Yeah, and
So,
let me mention a book that, for those watching this, a lot of the things that we're talking about the afterlife have been discovered through personal experience. I've been to the other side twice and back, and Natasha lives halfway there all the time. So, um, but these 70,000 people that us therapists at the Newton Institute have helped go to the other side and back, we've learned hundreds of things about what it's like in the afterlife. You know, like what you do when you're there, lots of these things, and we published them. And you know, a lot of the published research has already sold 1 million copies because there's such a thirst for this. But a good book to start with is called Journey of Souls, and you can find them, you know, used even because there's so many copies out there for $5-6 or something. But they're case histories, and when you read that, and also actually in the second book, Dr. Newton wrote Destiny of Souls. He answers a lot of the questions that the first book brought up, but it talks about like a lot about what Natasha and I are talking about today, about all these fantastic things we found out about this larger picture, you know.
mhm,
So a Journey of
exactly.
Souls, Destiny of Souls, two good ones. And at my website, I mean, I wrote a book called 3 Hours, 33 Minutes in Heaven, and I'm giving it away right now, the ebook version of it on my website, which you can see in front of you there. And it just talks about my one man's journey and about the 12 things I learned about myself and about God and everything in the hours that I spent there.
Mhm.
12 things that changed my life, you know, that are helping me actually do this work. It's in a roundabout way. It's how I got to know Natasha, how we
Yep.
found each other, you know, from having that experience. So
Exactly.
you can go there on
Exactly.
the contact page and just ask for the free. And there's also the other free ebook. It's about all the current research being done on reincarnation called Reincarnation is Real. And I'd be happy to send both of them to you for free. You know,
Exactly.
we're all here
Exactly.
just to help each other, you know?
We are. And and I want to make a disclosure here. So don't worry about the bad translation. You are perfectly good. I am very dyslexic and I have a hard reading, so I might as well be from another country. So Regan is telling you about books. I have not really read a bunch. I've skimmed a lot of books. I know that I've read a couple of those books, but I could not concentrate on them at the time that because sometimes my dyslexia is really firing off and it's very hard for me to read. I have to read very simple context to
Yeah.
get my and very imagery. If I can read a book that's imagery, that helps me to read a lot of times. So with
Journey,
that
well, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls are in French. They're in 8 different languages.
mhm.
So you can get it and read it in your own, read it in your own language.
Exactly, exactly. So with that a lot of my knowings don't come from reading books. The books that I've read, like The Prophet and Journey of the Souls and the Four Agreements and many different other stories that I pull things that trigger my own knowing from those books. And so with that I don't necessarily I've never been awakened. I was born awake. So there's that dance of how we negotiate. But so Regan will tell you about books. People ask me, "What books do you read?" And I go, "Hmm, I got books. I have opened them up. I have read them. I read a lot of Lewis L'Amour when I started reading because I didn't really read until after school. And so I read a lot of Lewis L'Amour, and I love how his books are very imagery for him. And the Dance of the Drum, I think, is one of his books, and it's about the beginning of the journey across Europe and the Arabs and the Arabian deserts, and how that all the trade how started and how people started speaking of the dance and it was like I was there. There's a part of me that was there. You know, it's like when I watched the movie where we talked about where the ship was made and the rocks came alive. It was uh, somebody. It was
I
Noah.
don't remember that movie.
Noah. It was Noah. It was a movie Noah.
Noah. Oh,
Yeah, I shook through the whole thing because it resonated so. Like, I could my husband was like, "Would you stop shaking?" Because I was shaking 2 chairs when I was so it was so resonating so much. So when I have these moments, it's about how is it wakening me up, and that's the humanness of us. That's why our humanness is here. So I want people to know, though, that, as we had somebody who had a brother who was shot and passed. We have these traumas that our souls go through. We have our addictions, we have our rapes and abuses and drug addictions and all these different scenarios. What are we supposed to learn from them? And many of us get stuck in that human story instead of rising above and moving forward. And then when we get to that ending time, and I can tell you that if we watch somebody who passes, many a times it's not their soul that's there. Their soul may be watching from the corner, but it's a very primal aspect. The body still wants to breathe, and so it struggles to breathe. The body still wants its heart to beat, and it struggles to want to, but then it slowly shuts down. And that primal part of death is what people get caught up in, the story of the negotiation of the passing. And it's not the soul necessarily is right there, even though I know from my dad when he passed, when I went into the hospital, I was in that process of when I walked in when he was passing, that his soul stuck around, kind of floated just above his body until I got there, and then he left. Because he wasn't afraid of that process of passing. He was very intuitive. He was very knowing. I'm actually picturing myself holding his hand. So sorry, I got a little right there. But it's that story of how do we go forward? And our soul is here to learn. What can we learn? Take that observation if you can. What is this here to teach me if you can? Because that is the dance of our soul.
Yeah, in the research we're doing too, we've noticed, like in a life between life process that I help people through, they we use them, we use the avenue of them going to a past life, seeing themselves pass away because they have those memories of that. And
Hmm.
then when the guides, when they've left their body from there, there's a guide angel or a relative or somebody there to help take them back home, to where that's our destination. We want to have people go to where they go between lives, heaven, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it. But we found out some of my clients that seem to be very advanced souls. I
Hmm.
mean, they just go in an instant, they're back home.
Yep.
They don't
They still
even,
have people with them, but they
yeah,
do, yeah.
because they just say, okay, I'm done here, I'm going back home. Others want to hang around for a little while, and everything in between. So it just seems it doesn't matter where you are, wherever you are in your spiritual walk.
Hmm.
So what Natasha and I are trying to do is just to try to help you to embrace where you're at the moment, but keep your eyes open for that next step that's there, that next something that gets you more of the bigger picture. If we got all of the bigger picture all at once, someone said our human bodies couldn't handle it. And in the old days, people were talking about things like what we're talking about. They'd end up in mental institutions, because people would think they were crazy, and all they were
Exactly. Oh,
doing
yeah.
is,
I know I was there one time because
yeah,
I was who I was. And that's where this lifetime I'm meant to shine my light. I'm meant to be my voice. And it's the
yeah,
first time in many lifetimes. I don't know when I wasn't. I mean, I've been, kept silent for many lifetimes. Now is my time to say, this is who I am. This is my story. This is what I know. And I'm so grateful for that, able to finally say, I'm
yeah.
here.
Don't you think that? Would you agree with? I've just had this thought, Natasha, and see what your feelings are. That mediums, in a sense, we've given that name to what you do, psychics, mediums, clairvoyance, that sort of thing. But in the old days, like say in the Bible and stuff, they would categorize them as prophets, you know,
Hmm.
and the Bible that says, well, be careful of who you listen to that prophesizes, because some are good and some aren't, you know. Well, it's just like with
Exactly.
mediums, there's some mediums that probably take things to a dark place, that are mediums that take things to a light place. So again, you just have to, everybody has to have some discernment in who they're listening to, because just because
Exactly.
a medium can gather the other side, she might be, her own personal life story might, you know, her interpretation of things might not be as good as some others, that way.
Exactly. I call them, uh, that they're more human in their process
Right.
of
Yeah.
the walk of their spiritual, and they have a message for somebody. Even somebody who is preaching darkness has something for us to learn.
Yeah.
In other words, well, that sounded kind of dark. Don't want to go there, do I? So I learned not to go there. There's something in everything to learn. And for me, I've dealt with the devil. There was one time I was dealing with the devil and I had to call Lucifer up to take care of it. You know, and so I'm not afraid of darkness. I'm not afraid of being there, but I'm going to tell you though, Michael, I work with divine love, and that's why I can work with darkness, because I have the balance of divine love
Yeah.
that helps me be who I am. And people always say, Natasha, you may change a room when you walk into it. And I go, that's me.
Yeah. Some people do that. I've been lucky to have a few of those in my life. People that just have that ability to lighten up a room with their beautiful, soulful, energy
Hmm.
that way. Um, One thing that I find interesting in this process that God has allowed me and the 250 other of my cells around the world that are doing this work is that this place where, in a deep state of trance, or which most people reach, when they, in a sense, expand their awareness to the other side, um, it's like an elevator going up. Where my clients get off in the elevator, it's nothing but love and light. We don't deal with any darkness there at all, or the devil, or anything like that, because it
Hmm.
seems to be, you know into the light, that way. So people get to experience what it is. A lot of people that experience that or have had near death, this is like having a near death experience without having to go through the death part. And I found a way, I'm trying to describe it to people. It's like we found a way to activate that switch,
Hmm.
on command, rather than you having to be in a near death situation or whatever. Or, because we do it in a controlled environment, people get to spend hours in the afterlife rather than just a few moments, or seeing the light or something like that. And that's what, Natasha, like when you're doing a session with people and you're getting help from their guides or their, oh, that's a question I had too. I was wondering, let's say when you're doing a session for somebody and you're getting this input about things to help them, is that coming from uh, their own personal guides, or is that coming from like Michael Archangel or something? Like, do all the guides up there have all the same information, or how does that work?
I actually do both. So I get information. When I doing a session, I call in their guides, angels, their beings who know their story. They're working with them daily. And then I call in the angels and guides who can help me to give them the greater vision for their life, so that I can help them be who they need to be in their next journey of their life. And
Do you
that's my disclosure, is as I do that. So I call in their guides, and they come and visit, and they be. And then when I'm done, I ask them to go back with the updated version. It's kind of like when I'm with you and you're with me, our guides are like going, hey, da, 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 da. Even though we're here doing this work, we're actually energetically getting there. Our guides are talking, hey, maybe you could do this next time, maybe you could do that, maybe that, she can help him do this, and he can help her do this, and da, 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 da. And so our guides are communing. That's why when I was in your house, all of a sudden it was like we just kind of got into this flow together, even though we had never known each other in humanness.
yeah,
We've done a show together, but as soon as I got in the car, it was like click. We
yeah,
knew each other. We were in sync together within reason, because our guides have already known each other to do that work. And so our
yeah.
guides can travel their energy too, so they can travel just like our souls can travel. If everybody saw, one time I got a vision I got this vision. I was sitting here and all of a sudden I got high up and I saw all the spirits and guides and angels for all the people. And oh my gosh, it was like, no wonder I feel like I'm swimming through a thick, mucky ocean, of light, because there's so much. And then you add in the darkness, because if you have light, you have darkness. Then you have the dark beings that are very much a part of this dance, because they have something to learn and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
Paula here says she's got my great grandfather shot himself in 1918, and I believe it was because he didn't want to burn the
Burden.
family burden the family, thank you, burden the family with his nerves disorder. He was a free thinker, and that would have had stigma of crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely. That is somebody called born before their time. But many of us who were born before our time, i.e., burned at the stake, i.e., rocked, i.e., shamed like no tomorrow. People would come to me in the cave to get information, but if they saw me in town, they would shame me. You know that that we were there to say, think about it. It's okay to be out of the box. But
Yeah.
we have people that are meant to be here in the 3D world, very simple, very knowing. They're just getting through life. Let me just let me just get what I need to do. I'll go to church, I'll come home, I'll speak of God. I'll be very 3D, very 3D. But then there's others of us that are like, I don't even want to say dimension, what dimension. I'm not saying, because I go on different dimensions. I'm multidimensional. So there's those things. So with that a lot of us can't. I know a lot of people who I do mediumship with, people who children have passed away, committed suicide, and I tell them that the vibration of this planet was too challenging for them. And that is not necessarily, I say that to everybody, but there has been times, more than once, that the vibration of this planet was so dense, so damaging, so loud. I mean, if people would hear how many languages and voices that we hear when we're in tuned, that that's why I have so many barriers around my house, because I need downtime. That there's that part of us that can go insane if we really stepped into that. And there's a lot of kids who, I'm going to call them kids because they're younger than me, who don't understand that vibration. They're not here. That's why we have so many kids on the spectrum now, because the fact that they came in and went, holy crap.
Yeah. Well, all we're talking about today can be actually pretty overwhelming sometimes for people, just thinking, oh my God, there's just so much, so much to
Mhm.
learn and everything. But the way
Mm-mm.
they talk to us from the other side to tell people is just relax,
B.
you know, and just, read a book or start meditating, and just have a knowingness that that it's like if you go to a university and you're taking a class, look at all the other hundreds of classes there are there of all this
Hmm.
stuff that are in this university, but you're just learning one right now. So, and
Yeah.
just, take little bite-sized pieces. But the main thing, like from our discussion today, is realize that in the work that we've done, what we've personally experienced and what thousands of other people we've helped experience, is just the fact that you're an eternal, loving, beautiful being. You have someone watching over you at all times.
No one
Your
walks
life has
alone.
you're never alone. Your life has meaning and purpose, and just relax and enjoy the ride.
Hmm.
Just try to be kind in everything you do. You goof up, don't be too hard on yourself because you're in the learning process. You don't get straight A's every time you do an assignment in college. There's always those D's, and you go back and you
Hmm.
learn and you learn. So don't let it be too overwhelming, but just have that excitement in you to know that there's so much more to learn and so much
Exactly.
more to grow.
Exactly. And Man on the Moon says, I have to leave. Thank you very much for these explanations. I'm not sure if I understood everything, but I understood the essentials. Have a beautiful day or evening. You are more than welcome. And that is, and that's where we have private sessions, because of the fact that every journey is our knowing. That's where, when we have a private session, this is a broad conversation and only an hour, and that's why we're alive. That's why we're live every week, because we can kind of continue these stories and doing these dances. That there is this moments of life, and we're going forward. So remember that it isn't about getting the download now. Our brains would explode. It's about chewing. It's a journey. It's not the destination. We don't even have the destination when we leave this planet in this human body. Our destination keeps going forward until our soul is done. And I don't know of any soul that is done, because they're always doing something else. So with that the journey here, it is a journey. So remember, this is just something to kind of shake up the truths a little bit for you, and kind of get a different knowing. So we're at 5 o'clock here, Regan. Can you imagine? Your friends are
Yeah, it
probably
went really
saying it's
fast.
cold.
Yeah, well, visit theafterlife.com just for something to do. Go to my website and just watch a few of the videos, and you'll learn a lot about what this life between life process is. Also, in the regular therapy section, watch the videos on EFT and hypnosis, and you can see some really fabulous, fantastic modalities that are used in regular therapy to help you just kind of balance your energy and cure yourself from PTSD, from too much anxiety, depression, addictions, and everything like that. There's some down to earth, as we call them, just regular, good old psychological therapy that works really, really good with helping to fix you. And most of it can be done over Zoom. And just like
Hmm.
Natasha, if you're not in her area, gosh, she's helped so many of my friends over Zoom that way. So feel free to contact her or me. We're there to help you. Right,
Exactly.
Natasha?
Exactly. And we're both on the Pacific Northwest, or not Pacific Northwest. So Regan is in California time zone, and I'm in Washington, but we're in the same time zone. We're in the
Yeah.
West Coast time zone. The So with that Pacific Standard Time, uh, s- you know, um, so Paula asked what time she said she got your message. Paula Sheehan said that she got your message and what time zone you're in.
Yeah, I'm in Pacific time, San Francisco time. I live up here by San Francisco. I actually see clients within a 500-mile range here. I travel a lot and see clients, but I do a lot on Zoom. Zoom has been a
Hmm.
miracle because now sometimes I'm helping people across the country or in other countries learn these things. So it's a godsend, this Zoom, and because like we know, like before this, it was like, I mean, I could even have clients and hypnotize them and help them on a phone call. We could do it over phone. Natasha's helped people. She can still help people even over the phone. It's like, we're so used to visual and everything, but visual is nice because then you get I love doing Zoom. The really great. Sometimes it's even better than in person. You know.
Exactly, exactly, because we get yes, and I can tell you that I do my private sessions and group sessions. I can even do group mediumship over Zoom. It's been amazing how we can do things, because energy is energy. And you can reach me at angelicclarifications.com. I am one who loves to help people, and Man on the Moon says thank you. I'll visit your website. So thank you very much for
Yeah,
honoring
come
us
back
that
again,
way.
man on the moon.
Yes, exactly. We're here every Monday at 4 o'clock. So I love to help people. I just did a session with someone who we went in back into pre-birth, and then I went into past lives in the dimensions, and then past life in her DNA to help with her mother and father, grandfather, grandmother, all that. And while she stayed in the bubble, and we did this healing work, and I got to check in on her and see how she's doing. But it was amazing how she just was like, after she came forward, it was like, and back to her body again within reason. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how I feel now. I feel so amazing. It's like, and that was only an hour of a session. And I just love doing that kind of work with people.
Yeah,
So,
me too.
blessings to all. We are here Mondays at 4 o'clock Pacific time. And I think really that this is a conversation we should probably continue, the soul's journey.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just name it the soul's journey next Monday and really get into um, some of that more story. Instead of saying about afterlife, it's about the soul's journey,
Right.
and why do we go through things, because you can kind of finish up on what has happened with your friends here.
Yeah. Tony just walked by and waved and said I guess everything's working out.
Oh, good, good,
Or
good,
no, I
good.
see him over there now. He's making another phone call, so maybe not quite yet. So
Well,
I'll give you an
blessings.
update next week.
Yeah,
See if he got his.
please do, because today's day has just been a rocky road. It's a rocky road. So blessings to everyone. On Wednesday, I will be on Life Clarifications with Natasha. I think I'm going to share my birth story, because I remember being born. I remember a lot of that contractual work. I remember writing the contract coming into this world. And this is not a meditation. This is not somebody else's mediumship that they did with me. This is my own knowing. Since I remember more before 5 years old than I do remember after five, for a time. So
That's
with that,
amazing.
that my soul was very awake when I was born, and I really want to share that story with people, and
Yeah.
may help them understand me a little bit better. I think,
Yeah.
because I kind of have a different aspect about life in the how easily I move from place to place in energy and knowings.
Yeah.
So, well, blessings to all. Please like, if you know somebody who can really listen to this message, please share it. If you have not been here before, please follow or subscribe to the station, because we do have many. I have over 400 videos on my channel now, and it's and a lot of them are our shows, The Dance of the Soul and Life Clarifications with Natasha, because we're live every week. So
Yep.
blessings, everyone, and welcome. And remember, if you are looking for help privately, we can do this work privately.
Happy to
Blessings
help.
all. Yep, exactly.
See
Bye
you
now.
next week.
And we're also on podcasts, so you can look to us on podcasts most everywhere. Thank you. Bye now.